Good morning, everybody. Today we're joined by none other than Mr. Imran Husain from Pakistan. He is a doyen in the German Shepherd game. He has been a lifelong German Shepherd man. In fact, he's a second generation German Shepherd man, where his father and his uncle had established the German Shepherd Club of Pakistan from its inception, taken the breed from its nascency to the 21st century. He has owned multiple world champions. uh, Perle Wildsteigerland comes to mind. She was the German Siegerin. Oberbad comes to mind. Another a favorite of mine, Gundo from Trinsbachtal comes to mind, who was a VA2 male. I think all poignant dogs and really important dogs in the German Shepherd breed. Mr. Hussain is now leading the charge for the Kennel Club of for the German Shepherd Club of Pakistan, bringing it to the WSV harmonization program, introducing bite work and hip and elbow programs in Pakistan. And he was also a board of director for the WSV, the Welt Union Schiff und Verein, that is the World Union of the German Shepherd Clubs. Hope I did you justice, sir. Good morning.
You overdone it, but thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Abhai. Good to speak with you.
Likewise, sir. Can you share your fascination with the where your fascination with the German Shepherd breed began, and how it led you to become a prominent figure in your country and worldwide?
Abhai, it happened very early. It happened because my uncle and my father, etc. I kind of grew up with dogs, but the actual fascination began when my uncle imported a dog, Kodo Preußenblut, in 1954. I was 4 years old, and I went to see the dog with my father at my uncle's home, and I didn't come back home for 4 days. When I came back home, my mother had to come and get me, and apparently she said I spent all the time after that standing like a German Shepherd on all four with one leg forward, one leg back. And so that was my total fascination. I got a daughter of his from my uncle 4 years later. I was 8, and I had her for 2 years, and that was the love of my life. Sela was her name, and I was totally committed and into dogs, not studying, not doing anything. I even gave up cricket, which I used to play very well at that particular point in time, for this. So I was just completely fascinated, and that's how it happened. And I think on this fascination, my father in 1960 gave me a present of the VA1 World Siegerin of 1959, Asya Sorgeiger Klauser. So that was my real initiative into dogs. 2 dogs came to the house, her, also a Cesar Malmanside daughter, and a dog called Castor von Rentropa, also a Cesar Malmanside son. And him I showed in Bombay, in India, but the first time I handled him, he won best in show all breeds in Bombay. As a 10-year-old, I handled the dog.
Wow.
So that's when I sold myself completely to the German Shepherd. I was fascinated by victory, by dogs, by bloodlines and everything else. And then I was just a hanger-on of my father's throughout. And I was very lucky because at age 12, he got his first Sieger, Mutzhaus des Kuckstrasse. And in that same year, VA1 and VA3 were both his, because Zebu House Shooting made VA3. And then Zebu made Sieger in 64. And a daughter of Mutz made Siegerin. So it was, I think I was just rushed into it. I was swept off my feet. Before I landed, I was already flying. So that was my involvement with the Shepherds as such. I was very lucky, man. Really lucky.
To contextualize this into the global geopolitical thematic, we should highlight that Pakistan had just come into inception as a country in 1947. So
right.
There was no infrastructure either in India or in Pakistan as far as purebred dogs go. And essentially, your family was laying the scaffolding in your country to
My country,
create.
yes, but in India, there was the Kennel Club of India existed. That was created by the British at a particular point of time. So in 47, when it split, the Kennel Club of Pakistan did come into being. My uncle and Colonel Malik, they were part of the Kennel Club of India. So they became Kennel Club of Pakistan as such, and it got affiliated to the Kennel Club of England. And then it suddenly went dormant in 56. and was revived in 1976. So there was a gap of 20 years where nothing really happened. My uncle moved to England. He was showing dogs there very successfully. And that's where all the interest was. He won Best in Show at Crufts in 1956 with his Greyhound. Before that, in 53 with a Cocker Spaniel. So he was doing really well in England, and he loved being in England. And he was an all breeds man. He would show there and in India. So that's how it factually worked. And all the shows were in India. There was nothing held in Pakistan during that time. So in 1976, my father got together to try and revive the whole thing, and they were able to revive it, and it came into being as a new kennel club in 1980, by which time I'd already started judging and stuff. So it was a good time at that particular moment.
Could you please share with me what was the motivation or the motivating factor behind your family's heavy involvement with the Kennel Club to establish and create, a system for people to be able to enjoy their purebred dogs in the country of Pakistan?
Let me tell you what happened. Basically, it was a kind of paying back for coming from where one came from. My father showed all his dogs in Germany. And yeah, that's what happened with me as well. But in 80, 81, when we started and we joined the World Union, and the Kennel Club came into existence, and application was made to the FCI, etc. It is a question of paying back and reviving the dogs here. We brought some dogs back to Pakistan, and we started showing dogs here and developing the interest and trying to expand the interest. I think the exciting point in time was in 1990, 89 was the first Seeger show. In 1990, Herman Martin came to judge the Seeger show. And there were 98 dogs entered at the Seeger show in Pakistan, which was a good number.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bad part of it was that 46 dogs belonged to me or my father. And and Herman said to me at that time over dinner, he said, Imran, you must start to expand the base. It can't all be in one house and be one club. And he was so right. And that is what I started to strive for, to develop that and work along those lines. And when I became president of the Kennel Club, of the German Shepherd Dog Club in 2006, I stopped showing and breeding dogs in Pakistan. And I restricted it all to restricted all that I was doing to abroad. I'd been showing abroad. In any case, keeping my dogs there. I was lucky in the sense when I started in 1971 with dogs in Germany personally, not father personally. I was lucky I bought the Seeger, the Jugendsieger, the 12 to 18-month male and female of that year, the 1970 year, both. I was very lucky to get both. And in the same year, Swashbuckler in 1971 became supreme champion at Crufts, the German Shepherd. He lived there.
That's right.
Owned by me and my uncle. The dog was there. So all of it was happening there. I tried to concentrate on showing there. In 79, I bought Pella and Grohl. Grohl was the SG2 dog. Pella was SG3. Pella became Seeger in 1982, as you know. And so in 81, when I got them, so I just kept on showing there. It was okay for me to not show here. But I will say that the first Seeger show in 89, there were 5 VA dogs in the ring in Pakistan, German VA dogs in the ring.
Wow.
3 bitches and 2 males. Gundo and Derby Adeloga. And amongst the bitches, there was Palme, there was Zira Nato Platz, and there was Vera Asta Platz. They were all in the show at that particular point. Sorry, Herta Kala Haider, a daughter of Vera Asta Platz.
I think it's important to highlight that Swashbuckler was one of the very few German Shepherds to hold that distinction of best in show in Crufts. And also Pele is the sister of the infamous or famous Palmi from Vishtaigalan. That is one of the
Absolutely.
stammutters of the breed, or the brood mothers of the entire breed.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where today it all comes from Palme, frankly speaking, everything.
Yep,
Then you
yep,
look back, you go to the back through Gundo, Aminios, through Uran, Wildsteigerland. Before that,
absolutely.
everything comes from Palme. Yes, Perla was a sister. Unfortunately, she was a beautiful show dog, but not a producer. So you
Sure.
have your luck this way and that way. So
Absolutely. Can't have your
this,
cake and eat it too.
yeah. So I think I think it was question of giving back, and we have succeeded. I haven't been showing in this country for 18 years now,
Sure.
and I don't breed here. It was all been in Germany. I was lucky enough in 83 to get permission to breed as the first foreigner in Germany, so I kept breeding there. I didn't have to breed here. I didn't bring some dogs came from my breeding, came back here, but in the last 15, 16 years, nothing. I think just one bitch from my breeding has come to Pakistan. And we have had been able to develop. And before this COVID drama started and the costs went up, etc., we were
Right.
at about 170, 180 dogs at the Seeger shows. And we've had the top judges judge here. We've had some really good dogs come into the country. The bloodlines are good. And I think we've been able to achieve a lot by just allowing people to breed good dogs and show good dogs without the pressure of competition coming or every title being won by us, which would have been I think, highly unfair. And
Sure.
yeah, I think it's been a good job in that sense.
So could you please describe to me what would be your ideal type of German Shepherd, physically and mentally?
Look, let's first take the mental part.
Sure, yeah.
Mentally, I believe you have to get the strongest dog possible. Strongest meaning he has to be bomb-proof, the dog.
Yep,
Not aggressive, a
yep.
family dog, and yet absolutely bomb. I think that is, without doubt, my ideal dog. I have a dog here. He's been
Hmm.
nine next month. He is totally amazing with children, with adults, with everybody. And yet he's a very, very secure, strong, mentally strong dog. So that I believe in. When we talk of type, breeders tend to go off, but let me talk about my own type and then come to
Yes,
this.
sir.
My own type
Absolutely.
of dog is a very harmonious dog that stands with the standard without any exaggeration whatsoever. A
Yeah,
male must look a male. His pigment must be strong and good. His proportions have to be 9 to 10, ideal proportions. He's got to have 45, 55 leg to body, and he is to be a good moving dog with those attributes that work in harmony, that he should have a sufficient reach, he should have a good drive, and he should have an excellent top line while moving. That's the dog I look for. Now, you can say I'm being idealistic. I'm not, because there are certain faults. Yeah, every dog has a fault. There are
sure.
some you forgive, there's some you don't. But don't forget, faults are only a small portion of a dog. So I will not look at a dog the moment it comes in the ring and say, head could be stronger. Withers are low. Croup could be no. I
Right,
will look at the dog, and then somewhere along the line, the croup could be longer, will fall in. It will not
right,
be 0.1 short croup. No, I
right.
won't do that. And I would, and a lot of people, young people tend to do it that way, fault judge rather than
Yeah,
overall judge. So that's the type of dog I look for. I look for a rich dog, rich pigmentation. Here, absolutely correct. A very good moving dog, and workability has to be there. I believe that if a dog is strong mentally, can work. We can go through the various exercises of teaching him how to bite and jump
sure.
ropes and do IGP, etc. That's kind of formal training. But if
Yes.
he's got the essential characteristics, he'll do the rest. It's not a problem. But if we make excuses for a dog that is not mentally strong, but beautiful to look at, then we will make excuses all our lives for that dog. Because that doesn't walk away, it stays. It will manifest itself at some time or the other. When you least expect it, it's going to happen to you.
A really interesting anecdote from Mr. Deagle that I always liked was when a dog is in trouble, it looks to its ancestors for help. And when there are no ancestors back there, nobody's coming to help. And
Absolutely.
so harkening back to that, you had this dog, Gundo from Tinsbachtal, who was VA2. For me, as like a personal choice, I saw old videos of him. It was, of course, before my time. I was yet a twinkle in my mother's eye when the dog was competing. But looking back at his videos, this dog seemed to have really good character. He had drive, he had power, and he was a very nicely built dog that could work, could walk, could run, and could do it all really well. Could you please highlight the importance of that type? And could you talk a little bit about Gundo being ahead of his years at the time?
Gundo was a fabulous dog. But Gundo was he's a fabulous mover. Anatomy was very harmonious. Everything was correct. Gundo, the people have ways of bringing up dogs. Gundo lived with me here in Pakistan for a long time. The dog, he had his own connections. He made connections. He was a thinking dog. Leopold Bucher believed that a dog should be treated as a dog. Gundo believed he should be treated as a king. He felt he was king. He felt he was king. And there came the conflict between Leopold and Gundo. And this is why he had problem in bite work. He didn't have any bite work problems. He was here. Martin saw him. Everybody saw him. Yeah, he had a habit. He would walk. He would hate the sun on his body. He had a lot of hair. When he was young, like Quanto Vinao, they thought that he was probably a long coat. He wasn't. He was a heavy coat. He would walk away from the sun. He would walk away from the sun and find shade to stand in anytime. If he was open in the garden, anywhere, you would find him standing in the shade, not taking the sun on his body. When he came here, it was later. So, yeah, the dog sired phenomenally in 1 year. 1 year alone, he sired, I think, 3, 4, 5 VAs.
Wow.
He was at stud just for 1 year before he failed the quorum.
Sure.
And that 1 year at stud was what I believe that dog, and I told Leopold when he went, I sent him to beat the summer here. I said, don't take him for the breed survey. I will take him. Because he and I had a rapport, the dog and I.
Sure.
I don't think that rapport was available with the others. So at that point in time, excuse me for 1 second. I think I have somebody here at the door.
I can pause it. I can pause it.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah.
And we're back.
Okay, so as far as Gundo was concerned, he would have made a huge impact. Breeding-wise, he had the line. And it was a shame that we lost him so early in his breeding life. But the dog was outstanding, absolutely outstanding in every respect. As you've seen videos, you've seen the character, the dog had absolutely nothing that was wrong with him. He was a super dog.
I think we would greatly benefit in the breed if we had more Gundos around.
Absolutely. No question about it. I say it again and again, all the time. Yeah.
So as a pioneer in the breed, what role do you believe the German Shepherd dog plays both as a working dog and a companion dog? And what can we do as, the members of the German Shepherd fraternity and the clubs to promote that?
Basically, again, as I said, it goes back to the dog. what we should do is what we can do and should do, and what we try to do here. You need a healthy dog. Healthy dog meaning hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, correct, mentally strong. And that's what we should encourage. People who are getting into the dog should do that. They should avoid extremes, they should avoid exaggerations, and they should avoid fads. It's important to stick to the breed and be true to yourself and to the breed. And if you are, we can all be successful, we can all move forward. What happens is, in different formats, if we take the working side, for example, other than the show side, which is a very important side, work has to be also done with the dog with love and affection. There are some who use methods which I don't agree with to train a dog and bring it in line. There are others who spend the time with love and affection to develop the trust of the dog and train the dog. So that's a very important factor. Again, with people in my country and this part of the world, unfortunately, what happens is their owners don't like to exercise themselves into working. The dog, unfortunately, finds he's become the pet of somebody who's a servant or employed to look after him.
Yep.
The dog is extremely clever, extremely clever. It picks up the scent of this person when I'm present, I being the owner, and he picks up the fear the person has from me, and therefore the dog knows who's the boss, and he tends to exercise the same superiority over that person. So it becomes a vicious cycle. The dog is not listening to that person. The person, whatever you may think, or whatever he may try to do, he does not treat him as his boss.
You're right. You're right.
And in every case, the dog has to be controlled here. You can't physically control him. You can't bite him. He can bite. He can bite. So it's as simple as that. He has the weapon. He is the weapon. And so you've got to mentally control him. The servant cannot, because he pushes him. He pushes him into a corner. So that fear that the servant has from me has the same fear from the dog. Or the dog will grow up in that particular way. If it's a pup being reared, and he will never find a semblance of discipline. He will not like discipline, and he will basically agitate against that discipline of fear. So it's important here in this part of the world, which I keep trying to tell people, do things with your dog yourself. Don't get the servant to do it. Do it yourself. So the dog knows you, you know the dog, and you have a good rapport. That is extremely important. And I don't say that I won that battle. I think I've made some inroads.
Sure.
And it's a difficult battle to win. But IGP, proper Schutzdienst, etc., will only happen when that happens.
Absolutely.
When the owner takes responsibility and says, I'm going to do it.
It's a culture problem.
Yeah, totally. Or you do it the other way, that you hire a professional house builder to train the dog, give you your IGP and come back and things. And then you start doing something with the dog where he's educated, and then he starts to follow commands, etc. But that costs money. That's not
a lot of money. That's true.
And these days it's costing more and more and more and more. Previously, there was a time 30 years ago which was a lot of money, but for 1,500 euros, you could get Schutzhund 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
I mean, today you can't even begin to think of that.
No.
So I mean, you can't even think of beginning to get Schutzhund 1 for that. So
no.
So this is where it's changed, and we have to live with it, and we have to see where we go with it. But
go ahead. Sorry.
No, please.
So I was so I we have an active club over here that we train our dogs for IGP sport. We do tracking, bite work, obedience. We're actively titling dogs. uh, the time commitment itself, like you gotta wake up at the crack of dawn to go track your dog when the dew's on the ground. You gotta put in the work with the obedience. You gotta incentivize the dog to do stuff with you. And then you have to take the time to build the dog and bite work from puppy on going forward as the dog ages and matures to create that picture that we want. Not only that, if we have the dog's title, let's say there's, a certain group of people that can get their dog's title abroad in Germany, in America, wherever, and then they can bring them back to the old country. There's no infrastructure, there's no successful infrastructure right now for the training to continue because, like I don't remember algebra from grade 10. I would need a refresher.
Yeah.
Similarly, the dogs, if they're just sitting on the couch for 4 years after they come back from Germany, after their titles, they don't know what was, they need to keep up on the training, whether you want to track the dog, whether you want to do dumbbells or whether you want to do bite work, they still need good training. And developing that is itself a huge challenge for a company, for a country to have the infrastructure and the people interested, not only the equipment expensive, the people need to have the will to learn, again, be active and not expect stuff to happen overnight because it's a skill like any other hard skill that takes a lot of time to develop, maybe sometimes underappreciated as far as the helpers go.
Absolutely. No, it is underappreciated. The fact is, it's not a question of the helper coming 3 days before the Seeger show
Right.
and working out the dogs that the dog will bite or not bite. I mean, the helper, you as a helper can tell straight away that this dog will succeed and this dog won't. I mean, it
Sure.
takes you a minute to do it and takes you a minute to tell whether it's the dog has the heart or
Yeah.
it's the handling which is incorrect. It's one of the two.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you live on that, this is where you got to have that balance, that perfect balance between what is going on. And this is where, we are going to have some kind of trouble in the next couple of years getting titles. And I, for one, believe that a dog, as I said, should have a working title to be
Yeah.
able to get the highest grading because he's come to a point. He's had his junior shows, he's had his youth shows, but he's coming to a point where he's going to be a breeding dog, where he's
Yeah.
going to leave legacy at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
yeah, the dog should be finished. He should have certain element of degrees. I'm not saying a show dog should be a champion working dog. He doesn't have to get 290 points out of 300 to be a show dog. But yeah,
Sure.
a decent workability that the dog knows what he's doing. And tell me, what is wrong in a dog doing scent work? What is wrong in a dog doing obedience or jumping? And if certain countries want to say, have an issue with the bite work part of it, well, let them find another alternative where the dog can put his courage and ability to mind. Whether the dog is going to do rescue work or police work or whatever it is, but the title must be there. The dog must have all three elements of work. Okay,
Absolutely.
maybe you can, there are ways where you can turn around and say, all right, why is scent work A and why is obedience B and why is Schutzdienst C? Why shouldn't it be obedience A? You can debate these things. There are so many arguments. But the fact is, at the end of the day, it's like you when you graduate from college with a
Yep.
fine art degree. You're not a genius. You're not a doctor. You're not, you're not a engineer. You are a
Yes.
basic educated professional,
Yes.
ready to pursue anything else you may want to pursue.
Yes. It's a
And
stepping stone to further your education.
so this is what we've got to do with the dog, train it. But then to be able to do that, you got to have your own mindset to be able to do it. You got to
Absolutely.
understand. You've got to accept the importance of it. Until we sit and deny the importance of this, we are not on the same page. If you're going to say the dog is just a dog, yeah, okay, fine. I'll take him to the show ring, run him around a couple of times, come back, etc. Let him lie on the sofa.
Yeah.
I think I think then you're not realizing the full potential of this enormous asset you have. Because it is, to my mind, an enormous asset.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
He's your friend, he's your buddy, he's every part of you. And if
Yep.
he's going to jump out of the car and run across the road and kill himself, it's going to hurt you. So if he's jumping out of the car, before he runs, if you say stop and he stops, he saved his life and he's made you a happy person.
Absolutely. Um, I wanted to highlight, so let's say in India, I grew up, as a child, I grew up in India. And it always tickled me when I would hear when the judge would say, for the dogs moving around the ring, the dog has excellent working ability. And I found it a little, even as a kid, it didn't make any sense. I was like 12, 14 years old, and I'm like, working ability, he's just walking. He's got four legs, of course he can walk.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I
and
agree.
then late. Mhm. And then as later on, as I got more involved in the sport, as I started actually seeing dogs that can work, dogs that need to work, it's a part of them that they must work as who they are, for their innate characteristics. It's really, you're losing a major part of your dog's personality and temperament if the dogs never get to actualize their potential in what they can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the second thing, in, like, let's say, I'll just, since I'm more intimately aware of what India was, let's say, 20 years ago, there's a mentality in the country, or let's say, I would say in the old world, there's a mentality that these folks, like you said, highlighted earlier, it's kind of a lazy culture. They're used to people serving them. They're used to people working for them, and getting, moving around and doing stuff is looked down upon. It's like, what are you, poor? You're gonna walk around and you're gonna do
Yeah,
your own things.
yeah.
So that definitely becomes part of a problem. Like, there's a dear friend of mine, Mr. AJ Singh in California. He is a successful working dog breeder in the United States. He competes with his own dogs, and he has a limited breeding program. His metric was, it was really interesting. He's like, unless you pick up after your own dog, you are not his owner or her owner.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that, mhm,
No, you're dead right. I wish we could change it, but it's not only in this part of the culture. Yeah, we pass it on to somebody else. At
yeah,
least they do some work. There are other
abs-
countries where
mhm,
the dogs are lying on the sofa. They're picked up in the car, taken to a show, run around the ring twice, and
right.
go back to the sofa in the end. And if a judge is looking at it and said the dog has not enough muscle, the owners get offended that he said he doesn't have enough muscle. I've seen many dogs that are being, made ready for Thanksgiving. They're carrying so much extra weight on them. But I mean, what can you
Stick a
say?
fork in them, they're done.
Yeah, so it happens, and this is what we've got to avoid. This is where, we've got to start believing across the world that the dog is a beautiful, fabulous animal that has huge potential for doing with him whatever you want to do. It's such a versatile dog. It's such an incredibly versatile dog that to my mind, there's no dog in the world like it.
I
No dog,
completely agree with you.
no breed in the world like a shepherd. You have different dogs. Yeah, maybe you have the Malinois for agility. You have
Sure.
possibly the Rottweiler with a bigger jaw or bigger head. I mean, they're great dogs in their own. I'm not saying that they're bad dogs, but they're not German Shepherd dogs.
There's only one German Shepherd dog. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Uh, to highlight the point of, to play the devil's advocate for these people, as much as I hate it, I'd say, let's say, the infrastructure is not established, whoever's fault or lack of initiative that might be. We don't have the infrastructure to help these dogs gain these IPO or IGP titles. They might not have the availability of land to track. You can find the information online if you're determined to, but there might not be a culture that supports training dogs to that level, for example. But to counter that, the WSV has come up with an excellent harmonization program, which you were a giant part of. Would you please mind highlighting that?
Look, the harmonization program is primarily based on health It has anatomy, it has character, and it has workability. That it covers those 4 sections effectively. It also contributes, as I said, anatomy. You come in, the health factor is simple. It's health for hips, elbows. In order to confirm the identity of the dog, you do need DNA. Microchip is a simple identification factor on the spur of the moment, but it does not give you any depth beyond that. Tattooing, I think, was probably more effective because you couldn't do away with the tattoo. With a microwave, lots of things have been known to happen. With a microchip, lots of things have been known to happen. So these factors are the health factors, and they are important, and we must follow them. And all countries which are breeding should follow them. And they should follow a standard. Again, hips and elbows and the x-rays of hips and elbows have to be determined within a certain format and a certain segment. Everybody can't do that. If everybody can begin to do it, you just get it done anyway. I believe personally that microchipping, again, is an exercise that should be officially conducted by somebody who's responsible for it. It's not that the vet puts it in. Yeah, the vet may put it in, but the vet should be made to file a return that is recorded somewhere and it's tied up. It's not that I go in and microchip my own dogs and write the information and send it off to the kennel club. That is not microchipping to my mind. That's not identification. That can only be confirmed then if the DNA is confirmed.
It needs to be authenticated by an official.
Where do we set up a DNA base? Okay, those are items of debate as to, in the modern world, whether you do the DNA in New York where you're sitting, and it is automatically transmitted through the internet to Germany onto the main database at Generatio, and then it's confirmed there, or whether you have to send the Go card. And those are workable things which can be worked out. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Semantics.
Today you can do it, those semantics. What you need to do is have the base where you're recording it and make sure it's being recorded there.
Yeah.
And I think this is what the harmonization program is suggesting. And obviously that certain people who are detractors from it, they want to do it in their own country, etc. And then the base doesn't go in, okay? One of the things that highlights this is, and one of the things why I am not totally pro artificial insemination is simply because you are not certain under the current circumstances where you're not officially getting the semen and you don't have the DNA database in your country, whether the semen you bought is the semen of the right dog or it's purported to be the semen of the dog.
Absolutely.
Okay, and if you mate the dog to a bitch and you have a database in your own country and you register the data, that dog in the database, it's recorded in the database, and the father is a dog that may not be the father.
Sure,
and absolutely. The whole idea of the data of DNA is to establish who the parents are. So if you're shooting that in the foot from day one, I'm not saying everybody's a crook. You may be getting the right bloodline. You may absolutely be getting it from the right person. You would be getting the right bloodline, but you've got to be able to ascertain where and what and how. So if
in the words of Ronald Reagan, trust but verify.
Right, absolutely. So if you are going to at any time allow the transfer, the official transfer of semen for mating purposes, it has to carry safeguards. It has to carry a checklist. It has to be officially done for it to become virtually foolproof.
Yeah.
Okay. The other part that the anatomy, that the harmonization deals with is pedigrees categorized separately into basic, advanced, and premium. Premium are pedigrees that are created from dogs that coming out straight out of the SV, Quorum, DHA, HDED, DNA, Quorum, all the titles, everything complete. That's a premium pedigree, father, mother side, 3 generations, parents having done their proofing, Quorum, etc., done. Advanced is again where you know the bloodlines and maybe one line here or there, second, third generation are not not having one part of the title or something to that effect. So that's the premium. And basic, or like to call it original, is a pedigree where you know 5 generations of the parents.
Sure.
Mother, father, not necessarily that they may have done working titles, etc., etc. So you
at least the parentage is established.
Yeah. So you secure that established, and through the DNA it's established. That's important.
Yeah.
Of the DNA to establish those 5 generations. So that part is an important part, and at the end of the day, when I as a breeder sell the dog to somebody, I have the responsibility to know what I'm giving them.
100%.
I should know what I'm giving them. They're paying money for it.
100%.
And therefore, they should get a pedigree. He should know up front that this is a premium pedigree where this dog with 3 generations of parents with complete titles and breed surveys, etc., if he is good enough, is eligible to become a VA in any country in the world.
Yeah.
Because you might buy the pup into America and then eventually want to show him in Germany.
Sure.
You have to train him and do whatever. Yeah. But then you don't want to show up at the show in Germany and he's called out and some judge points out to you at that time, but in the 3rd generation, the great-grandmother didn't have this, therefore he can only be V.
Yes.
And that has happened so many times. But why should it? Why should it happen? When you can avoid it happening, why should it happen? So that part is important. Character is important. We have to go through the character test. Whatever you do now, I have a particular thing. We have here in Pakistan, we have a problem with laying scent and scent work out in the fields, etc. You would have the same problem here. Having fields doesn't mean that you can lay scent tracks.
Yep.
You need to get it done differently. So one of my suggestions is, I don't know whether it works in most countries or not, but I would certainly try to promote it in my country because it can happen. And we have people who can train for it. There's a lot of availability of drugs, etc., in the country that come in from the north into the country, etc., etc.
Sure. Yes.
We have a very strong anti-narcotics force in the country. And those anti-narcotic forces, they have trainers who've trained dogs from scratch to filter out narcotics from trucks, from airports, from anywhere else, from baggage, etc.
Detective work, basically.
Detective work. Now, I think that is, for me, that's strong positive nose work. The dog is using nose. The objective is for him to use the nose. So if I have access to people who can professionally help growers, owners, train their dog to do this work, why should I not use it? It's particular to my country. I'm not avoiding IGP. I'm saying this is an alternative to that.
When we're looking for real-world applications, IGP tracking has absolutely 0 real-world application because it's not really a hunting exercise. It's an obedience exercise. No animal is following the track step by step in real life to detect. If you're looking for a rabbit, like the proverbial rabbit, the rabbit's already long gone if you're following the footsteps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whether you're giving the dog somebody's clothing to smell and chase, he's not following the line. He's picking up the scent and he's going in the direction he needs to go. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so, and this is a discipline that we would not be able to do here. But nose, yes, baggage laid out in a hall or a shed, and the dog to weed through the baggage like he does at airports. Behind the scene at every airport, dogs are working to carry out look at the baggage and to see what's happening there. So I'm going to propose that we do this in Pakistan and work on this in Pakistan to get on with it as quickly as possible. Yeah.
That's a great idea. Absolutely.
I'm ready to let SV judges come and judge the program, bring them in, let them see what we are doing, because obedience and bite work we can do. We are delayed, and we will be delayed indefinitely if we try to follow tracking or laying of tracks in the car. It will never happen.
Right.
I've been trying for 3 years. It won't happen. And of course, when I sit outside and look at it, sitting within the SV board, yeah, you tend to formulate rules. But when I sit outside, I think I am in a position where I would be able to go back and say, this is what I want.
I think when we talk about ourselves as a worldwide family, we have to look at the conditions that are worldwide for the breed to grow and grow properly. Because whether we like it or not, as a club, the breed is popular and the people will find dogs, regardless of whether they come from the standards that the SV proposes or not, or the WSV proposes or not. So when there is no real world application, and especially, space constraints, population constraints, knowledge constraints, or financial constraints in in the developing world, when we impose these levels, which, if it makes sense, okay, sure, yeah, courage test makes sense, that your dog has a basic amount of courage, and that can be taught to a good dog, and you can teach it quite successfully. We have obedience exercises. Of course, the dog must be under control and subordination when we're working the dog. Completely understandable. Long down, all these exercises have an absolute relevant role to play. But tracking, again, is, it's like Mr. Lars Lentz and I had a conversation. He says, IGP is a circus, and we love the circus. It's not a real world breeding test anymore. So when we take it as such on face value, we're doing the dogs a disservice.
Yeah, no, I think yes. Yes, breed survey is a very important factor as to what you're breeding from. It's also very important that people know what they're breeding. What happens is that sometimes somebody gets very successful breeding one litter, one dog, etc., and then they go out, then they run off on a tangent. They think that what I call buffet breeding, that you've got 20 dogs you can pick from your bitch. But all 20 beautiful dogs. But yeah, it's not a buffet. You've got to pick out the one thing that you are going to be able to work with and think, okay, this makes it practical sense for me to use this dog on my bitch. And that is coming back again to the type of dog you want to produce. What is it that you want to produce? And breeders have to learn in a show element to produce dogs that are basically conforming to the standard. Make it easy for the judge. Okay? Again, you can, in a place where there are 600 dogs entered at a show, you can afford to have variety of types, etc. In this sort of country where we are, if you have a show, a ring full of 12 dogs, and 7 are of a different type because the breeding has been haphazard. Good dogs, but different type. I know as a judge that when I see that situation, I wince, because I'm going to be putting different type of dogs around up and down, because that's, in terms of quality, that's where it is. And then I look back at myself and say, what impression am I leaving behind as to what these guys should do in the future? I can only do what I have. So my idea, of course, is let a judge see the type of dogs in Pakistan. Let him go back and say, yeah, I saw 200 dogs in Pakistan. The majority were of correct medium size. The majority had good pigmentation. The majority had good secondary sex characteristics. The majority were good movers. The majorities had a certain type, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, sir.
Then I've been able to successfully portray what we've done here. And that's what we try to do here. To a large extent, we've tried to do that here. And we've had dogs producing. Some dogs have produced really well, and it works really well. It goes extremely well when we can do that, and we are doing it. Of course, as I said, once and if, unfortunately, buffet breeding or fat breeding starts, it will be in trouble. But at the moment, we are
mhm.
okay. We are all right.
So to play the devil's advocate, I remember Mr. Messler back in the day. Mr. Peter Messler had included dogs from different families in the top group. Later on, Mr. Reinhard Meyer continued in his footsteps, and he included dogs from different families, promoted them to the top group that represented the spectrum of the highline dogs that we had. He even made an initiative to bring up some dogs from the Leistungslinie uh, to promote a progeny group from them and include them in the first group in the stadium with Javier Talcamarda, bringing him up to V56, I believe it was. And he promoted dogs that would have not been included into the VA group, but they were like Balak Zowaringer Reinhau was inducted into the VA group simply on the basis of his working ability, with him competing at the regional and national trials. Then he had
Yeah.
a sable dog from that was originally called Arex from Herr Brammerwald, I think was his name, was called out in the late 60s or mid 60s, and he went all the way to V21, I believe, just on the basis of his performance, that the dog could actually perform, and he was
Timo Berkasten's son. Yeah. He
absolutely,
moved
yep,
well. He moved extremely well at that point. Yeah, I
yep.
remember that. I remember that process. Yeah.
Yeah,
Look,
and he had dogs
that,
like Lorenzo from Isadora and all these dogs in the top group that came from alternative bloodlines that were not, the mainstream dogs. I think we ran into a bit of a problem with the diversity in the families two breed wardens ago in Germany when you saw like most of the dogs came from, let's say, two or three sires, and the whole populated the whole VA groups with those dogs. And now we have a problem where we can't get away from proportions when we're looking at issues. Okay, we fixed the size issue for the most part, but now we've got other issues that cropped up with the height to depth proportions. We've got, deep character problems. We've got mobility problems that those dogs brought with them, unfortunately, even though they. So we were looking at a stopgap fix for a short-term fix, and we lost sight of the long view.
yeah.
How do you think we can get away from that?
I think one of the things, if you go back to the time when the National Breed Warden judged females and the
Yes, sir.
president judged males.
Yep.
Now, what
It
was
was a
very interesting,
long story tradition.
yeah, long-standing tradition. And you know what the advantage of that was, Abhay, which I don't know whether people are aware of that. I mean, I'm sure there are many intelligent people who are aware of that. The National Breed Warden and the judge of the Gebrauchen class, Bruden,
That's the working class males for the English speaking audience.
working class males, worked together. The VA bitches and the top bitches were selected in a manner that they would pass well by the 6 or 8 VA dogs that were there.
Yep.
And that mating gave you a lot more VA bitches at that point in time, which were producing puppies.
Yep.
And dogs were producing puppies. So you had dogs from the Quanto line, the Canto line, the Marco Cellerland line, and the Mutspelstier farm line in the VA.
Yep.
But you had corresponding bitches that worked well with them. And you had a lot of VA bitches at that point in time producing puppies.
Mm-hmm.
The line producing puppies. VA bitches coming in from a mother line producing puppies. Look at Trinsbachtal, through Otti Trinsbachtal.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely.
Otti Trinsbachtal produced 3 VAs.
It's fabulous when you look at these females and the production.
Produced Uta, produced Anush.
Yeah.
Uta came from the Trinsbachtal line herself. Anush came from Aras Grubeholler, which is the Herolaphoff line.
Yes.
Tani came from Erkwieneau, and
Yeah.
Tani produced Gundo. Ciola was a Gundo daughter. Inka Eichwald Hutter, also as a 2 times Siegerin, was a Gundo daughter. So that line was manifesting itself.
Jack Trinsbachtal.
Jack Trinsbachtal of the Gundo son.
Yeah.
Don Lennefertal was a Gundo son. So,
Yeah.
the line was manifesting itself in that way. You take Bjerke Filsperle. Bjerke Filsperle produced the Siegerin Pisha Bad Ball, and she was the mother of Palme Bad Ball, who was VA2 and VA3, and which Dr. Beck said at the time that he didn't want a yellow Siegerin. She happened to be mine, so I mean, I had to accept the fact that she was a yellow Siegerin. But yeah, so these lines were producing, they were all you take Fevaya Tertian produced Fedor and the entire Arminius line from that side. So this was because there was concentrated breeding together. Whether Dr. Beck did it and Hamann did it together, you had a way forward. You knew what you were doing. You're working behind it.
It was a collaborative effort.
Yeah. When you got the National Breed Warden or the bitch judge changing every year, the male dogs were not changing every year. There was a judge there who was doing them. He was trying to produce dogs that would be able to mate to other bitches and produce outside the line, provide alternatives. And in trying to provide those alternatives, you ran into a situation where at one particular time in time, you had 7 dogs of almost the same breeding. Different types, but from the same breeding, which is again something that was not correct.
Absolutely, yeah. That's an issue in itself.
If you go to a particular dog, and he's a beautiful dog himself, and produces good dogs, but of 5 different types, then I as a breeder,
I'd say far away.
What am I expecting? But people didn't stay far away. They went into the line, and they kept breeding into the line, to the point that they ran into a stop, and now it's partially being reversed slowly by other dogs being inculcated into the line and then going forward. So each line has its own impact. Now that is where we need stability. I still tell everybody I see, all my friends who are judges in the SV and the SV, for God's sake, confirm the bit judge. Has to be one.
Absolutely. There needs to be established leadership. And in my opinion, it should be a breeder that has success with his own mother line, not just somebody who's, met the requirements. Talented breeder needs to be.
Yeah, and a lot of people are closing in, going back into their own line.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Now, whether there are breeders who are breeding successfully every year, making very good places, but they're breeding within the own line. It's all their own, one form or the other.
Well, but the interesting part is, there was many sons of Giovanni, but there was only one Ober.
Yeah.
So it's the importance of the mother family, it cannot be understated.
Absolutely. I mean, that was again a very, very firm, solid mother line.
Yeah. Could you please talk about Aisha and all these dogs a little bit?
Aika goes back to, again, Kevin Murtal and Ricor on the father's side. And the mother's side, again, she goes back to Trinsbachtal as such. So there was this part of the line that came through. If you look at it today, Ober produced outstanding characters.
Yeah.
Workability, bite work produced fantastic, excellent pigmentation, very good proportions, short groups, and very good, solid, stable movement without any exaggeration, no exaggerated hind angulation. And this is what he produced. And the line has manifested itself. If you take Aika at the top and come down from that, she herself produced 3 VA males. Shivas from Visum.
Shivas Bad Ball.
Shivas, Visum, Fürstenperle, and Ober. But if you follow the line, the mother line from Ober, which comes out and spreads, and the father line, The males you get through Enosh and Sabat. On the mother line, you come through Viva Casta de Hof, and that
Yeah.
whole line coming down below that line, whether you go to the Nobili line of Esther, or whether you go through the line from Viva through Priska, who was a VA, and all that Priska produced, you have a huge tree that is producing. Again, that's a mother line.
Yes.
Aika herself had, I think, 19 or 20 progeny. Check it out. That was graded at various shows and had
Right.
the ED, etc. So yeah, that was the strong. For me, that is what really was eye-opener. This was absolutely wonderful feat when she made VA in 2004, and it was just fabulous. I was really lucky to buy her. I fell in love with her and bought her, and yeah, I'd known Konrad Sigmund and Björn Bucher for a very long time, and well, Giovanni and Ober was a wonderful surprise, wonderful event, and yeah, it succeeded. It went on for years and years and years. Even now, you have 3, 4 dogs of the Ober line in the first few. After a break, during the time when that trend was being followed, and a particular dog was being moved, the entire Ober line had almost been completely obliterated, but it wasn't. It was still behind. The Enosh line was there, the Sabat line was there, and it came through there, and it went forward. And, you know, we've been really lucky. We had this dog who went to, who was VA 2 years before last. He was 5'3" on Ober. Udro was 4'4" on Ober. The current dogs, all the Mondos and the entire line from the Valkuvias, the Mondo line carries Ober. So you're back in that line in a big way.
Yeah, it's interesting because these top dogs, they don't produce in a vacuum. They need these excellent mothers behind them. And you cannot deny them, even if, you know, there might be, you know, motivations to promote one bloodline over another for somebody who's in charge at the time. These dogs, these great dogs, you cannot keep them down because they will keep on producing great dogs after them, whether they have the ranking to go with them or not.
Yeah. I think you have to find your way as a breeder to be doing things. It's unfortunate today that the social situation has changed.
Yes.
Where unfortunately we are not getting singular or young or individual breeders coming forth, that the breeding is being concentrated in the hands of a few, and those that breed outside also find their dogs being filtered into the few. And that's one of the reasons for the dwindling entries at shows, etc.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I completely stopped showing my dogs.
Yeah. Somehow one hopes that, you know, the younger people will somehow get the fillip to move on. I mean, some of the older people who are dominating things perhaps may no longer be in a position to dominate them, health-wise or otherwise. But we need younger people to come in and do it.
Yeah, Father Time's undefeated.
Yeah, we are defeated. I mean, I can't be patron saint of you know, everybody there. I'd love for young people to succeed. My whole objective is to try to get a younger people to succeed, to take it on, but they have to exercise discipline. You can't give in. I'm telling you honestly through experience that, yeah, one had the did fad breeding. One went into certain situations. My father would like to have had in Pakistan, and he did, dogs from 4 or 5 lines to breed to his bitches, which may have been of a particular line. But it was still this thing to stick to that. I, for one, believe that I've had mega success in line breeding to Ober. It's not the thing, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5. It's improved the character. It's kept it going. I'm really happy with that. So and
also moderate dogs, not dogs that are exaggerated.
You get the type, you get the dogs, and that's the way it goes. It runs that way. We have young VA here this year, Chivago Bud Ball. It's again line bred 3 times to Ober. So He has Enosh on the mother's side. He has Sabat through Udro on the father's side. Enosh again. It's all there. And in this line will succeed. Tel Gatas is an Enosh grandson. So that is Ober line. You know, we have all of that line to breed from and to see where we go with it. So I hope younger people will breed dogs and younger people will bring dogs and younger people will keep dogs rather than concentrate them in the hand. Yeah, it's damned expensive, as you know.
Yeah. Oh
Really
God, do I ever?
to try to get IGP and things,
Yes.
IGP 2, 3, etc. That in itself is a huge cost. And the sad part is that any dog outside the first 10 Vs hardly gets a look into breed.
That's true. That's very true.
So, you know, when
we talk. Mhm.
Yeah.
We talk about looking at dog. We talk about looking at, you know, the right dog for the right female. We're talking about matching the families. But the actual fact of the matter is, all the males that are in the VA groups, all the top females that are coming from those males that are in the top groups, they're all coming from literally one dog, literally just one family. And the late Mr. Martin was quite proud of the fact that he predicted that all the dogs coming forward that will be successful will only come from Jack and Zam. And I think that's been a little bit of our undoing at this point because of the bottleneck that is created.
Yeah. I think what we've been able to succeed in really well across the board is that hip scores are very, very good. Elbow scores are improving. Health, by and large, is improving in the German Shepherd dog. And I'm talking primarily temperament, Germany, I'm talking about. Yes, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we are getting some top dogs that are not 100% certain in character. And this fact is being concealed to breeders. It only gets exposed at the Seeger show and, you know, stuff to that effect. I think there's general exposure. I think
I fell victim to it personally a couple of times. And I don't want to mention the dog's name, but literally I was a highly rated dog, a couple of highly rated dogs from Germany. And when you meet them in person, they have the personality of a sack of potatoes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's that's what I'm saying. You know, you can robotize a dog.
Yeah.
And the robot dog doesn't always react the way you want it to react. It can have a circuit breakdown at any given time.
Absolutely.
And it goes into it does not compute. And when it does not compute, you've had it because you're at the end of a line of an animal which is not computing.
Yes.
So this is where bloodlines and the characters of a dog, when you're determining a dog, are very, very important. I mean, to my mind, I refuse to be emotional when I have to discard a dog.
And by discard, we mean to take it away from the breeding program.
Yeah, just to give it away as a pet to somebody and say, beautiful dog.
Exactly.
Enjoy him as a pet, but I don't want him to bring forward in the second or the third generation what I'm seeing happening now. May not be in the immediate generation. Second, third, we have a absolutely top dog who is probably, I would say, one of the most pleasing and beautiful dogs I've ever seen. And yeah, he produced problems, mental problems. The males that he produced had problems. And yeah, we bred from those dogs. We bred heavily from those dogs and found that those dogs themselves had problems and produced problems.
Yes.
And have vanished from the breed.
Yep.
One of them, probably one of the, again, most beautiful dogs I've seen in terms of proportions, in terms of body characteristics, etc. Absolutely fabulous dog. Yeah. He was unsure.
How about we look on the other side of the aisle? We have a whole other population of dogs that has the same rigors of health testing, temperament testing, breed surveys, so on and so forth. And we only talk about our three pillars: We don't even mention Marco anymore. We just talk about Quanto, Canto, and Mutz. But we've got dogs like Fero and Mink and Greif on the other side that we never even talk about. Most of our breeders probably haven't even heard of these dogs. If we're doing diligent breeding when we're looking for dogs to fix or take away problems or balance certain things, why don't we look at the other side as a bigger population? Is it just the
They
fact that everybody wants a winner?
one, everybody wants a winner. Two, it's lucrative financially to have a winner, and it's jarring to not have a winner.
Sure.
To have a V15 or 20 dog, which is a very high position, getting almost zero studs
Yeah.
and costing you money, it forces you to sell the dog.
Right.
Because let's say at the end of the day, you need enough studs to feed the dog.
Sure.
And if you're talking of training, etc., driving, etc., costing you €1,000 a month, keep a dog, and he doesn't have any studs, and he has 3 studs or 4 or 5 studs in a year, which is a total of €3,000, you're €9,000 out of pocket.
Yes.
And for what? You drive in the weekend, and he runs behind 2 VA dogs that are at the show in his V3, and nobody else is coming to him for stud. You're pushed to sell the dog.
Sure.
So the dog goes out, you get another dog, and you try with him, etc., while the VA dogs are making the money. So that is a little bit unfair. I think extending this used to be restricted to 60 studs a year when we were there, when it was in Germany, to extend it to 30 foreign studs as well. And today
90 breedings.
Today the position is that even VA dogs are not full without these 30 foreign studs.
Right.
The number of litters last year, I think the dogs registered were 6,500 or something to that effect. It was as bad as
Sure.
that. So, there's a huge financial loss being incurred in all of this. And as training costs are going up, people don't have the time to train themselves. In the past, before this glut of dogs came in, house builders were far and few between. People had 2 dogs, and they did the house building themselves. It took a little bit of time. Either the daughter did it, or the wife did it. Everybody was involved in doing it. Today, you see less familial involvement than it used to be before. Of course, there are some very, very fine father-daughter, father-son relationships, and this is continuing and happening, and families are involved in dogs and expanding. But by and large, that unit I find missing.
Yeah. It's become more of a factory
when I look around me, the dog will go somewhere to an house builder, do his IGP or whatever, and then come back and then go again. It's not that he's staying in the house and doing it. And there's a transition process. I mean, you train dogs,
Yes.
The transition process, how it works.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, the social norms are different. Life has changed. This pressure on life is a lot. And it's a shame, because I would hate for this breed, to completely disappear in this sense. But you're right, everybody wants the first place. At this point in time, it's much easier to win good points with long stock-haired dogs. So everybody wants to run long stock-haired dogs, to get a VA or a V, or run in the first 5 or 6 or 8 dogs with long stock hair. Fantastic. People are enjoying them. Even in Pakistan, it's unbelievable. I was at a show in Islamabad where 60% of the dogs were long coated. I mean, as president, I can't say that's not good, but as a judge, I mean, it's not what I was looking for.
Sure.
But yeah, it's happening. Again, that's all positions. People wanting to make positions. And let me tell you one thing. A lot of the long coats look much more in type. The picture in type is better than the picture in the normal stock dogs.
I
The
think it's because there was no
same,
actual
same
regulation of
little
the.
legs, same little legs, same length, same deep hind angulation, same heads. I mean, you look at it and say, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4. Great picture as a judge. Take the picture now.
No, nobody accused of them being ugly. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's life. That's the way it goes. Yeah.
And so we're at this position right now. Where do you envision the future of the German Shepherd breed as we move forward around the world, considering the changing landscape of ownership and breeding practices with the harmonization with the program with the WSV? We've got the ZAP test that's as used as a prerequisite for breeding to get a breed survey now. Could you expand on that, please?
Well, ZAP test is not a prerequisite. ZAP test has made your ability to breed easier.
Yes. No, but to actually get a breed survey now, without the ZAP test, you cannot get a breed survey.
Oh, without ZAP, but then you still need BH and IGP,
Yeah, of
etc.
course. Yes, absolutely.
to get a breed survey. But
Yes.
ZAP allows you to breed, and then you
Mhm.
can get a basic pedigree with ZAP as such.
Correct.
Previously, if you bred a bitch over 20 months without any ZAP or any title, then the papers were white papers. It would just
That's right.
be Leistungshof. You would not get core and Leistungshof or pink
Yep.
papers.
Yep.
So ZAP test was created with keeping in mind allowing breeders to start breeding earlier without quorum or without the cost of quorum or without the cost of IGPs, etc., etc. Breed a litter and see where it goes from there. Yeah, you're allowed until the age of 3 to get breed without a quorum in any case. So
Yes.
ZAP makes it a little bit easier to do it. ZAP is a way out, and okay, fair enough. I think it's good. But with the future, what I see is it's going to get tighter and tighter, and it's unfortunate that it's going to get tighter. There's going to be more concentration in certain hands which can afford to invest in developing dogs, and you're going to find, unfortunately, people in Germany taking a step backwards to see what they're doing. There's a lot of growth in Italy at the moment, of course, in numbers. Italian
France.
shows big in numbers. France is growing, where it's possibly easier to get these titles, or otherwise, and they can breed. And of course, the homogeneity of being able to show anywhere, everywhere, that mobility within Europe will allow people to do more. And I hope
Interestingly, they're not constricted by the German rules. Because the German rules don't apply to the French and the Italian breeders, and the Germans are constricted by the German rules.
they're constricted by the rules. But I think if harmonization was to be followed, certain elementary rules will have to be stuck to be able to get the prerequisite or the requirements to do it. Now, of course, the challenging part is that how many should and why should they? Because
Right.
how many dogs, for example, produced in Pakistan or in the United States, for example, are going to go to the German Sieger show? And
Barely any.
if they are going, then yeah, they'll do the required tests that they need to do there. But people here will not do the test. Yes, the important part is everybody wants a VA dog.
Yes.
Everybody. Whether it's America, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's anywhere else. Now to become a VA dog, and this is important, regardless of what people might say or do or otherwise, to get a VA dog, he must have HD, ED, DNA, breed survey, IGP 1
Yeah.
and breed survey, and pass the bite work on that test.
Yes.
Then he can he can qualify for the title of VA. And the important part is that these guys who are running around in secondary clubs awarding VAs to everybody, to Tom, Dick, and Harry, don't seem to realize, and their organizers don't seem to realize, that the VA dog under harmonization from a WUSV club can and will get a certificate issued by the WUSV.
Sure.
If your dog is declared VA by a German judge at a Sieger show in your country, you can write to the SV, to the WUSV, and they will issue you a WUSV certificate. That authenticates your VA.
Yes.
So that is what is the crux of this whole thing. That is the only thing that will get people to work towards these IGP titles, etc.
Sure. And I liked one point you made, instead of the IGP2 requirement, because what is IGP2 over IGP1? Like 2 more blinds to run, or slightly bigger dumbbell, or maybe 50 more paces on the track. It's essentially the same.
IGP1 has to do.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you, because
the rest of the world,
I think
you can mess around with 3, 4, whatever you want to do it, but one will be the go-to figure or factor in the next few years.
Amen to that. I think that is very, very
beyond to one will be up to the person or the owner himself, whether he wants to pursue it or not.
Absolutely.
We cannot and will not, at least I will not in Pakistan, push people beyond the one.
I think that's very honorable to not push people into that.
One will be voluntary to them doing it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is to make it easy for people, to encourage it. I know at this year, there were 15 dogs in what we call the open class.
Yes.
Out of those 15, I know 9 dogs personally would have passed the bite work test with flying colors.
Sure.
Flying colors. If that was the criteria, I would have had a ring full of 15 dogs rather than 2 dogs in the working class, one of which gets in, one of 3-1, which is neither here nor there.
Sure.
And that's the way we need to work it. People want titles, they want to be made life to be easy for them, and that's how we can promote it to happen.
Common sense solutions instead of getting stuck in a rut.
Yeah, you can't just sit down and say, this is it. You have to ease into it. You have to ease people into it. But on the other hand, if anybody is going to be obstinate and say, no, we will not do this, and we will breed long coat to normal coat, and we will do that, then you're not going anywhere. Then you're not going anywhere.
Absolutely.
You have to, either you're firm about it or don't play around with it. Don't bring rules. Don't create rules to make people break them.
It's dog training fundamental. It's like
age-old connotation of rules are made to be broken. No. No.
South Asia puts a new flair to that.
I don't think we need to do that. Yeah, absolutely it does. And basically, I'm not talking about China. I'm talking China is probably ahead of us, and they operate within a curtain where we get some exposure and some not. I've judged in China. Don't get me wrong, there's some outstanding dogs in China. I've judged outstanding dogs in China, big classes and big shows, and they're doing a great job. For the rest of Southeast Asia, other than Pakistan, I believe India has now started to do HD and ED testing, etc.
Not yet.
I know they're not doing DNA, but Pakistan is probably the only country which is doing HD, ED, DNA, and Schutzdienst for all their tests, etc.
I would really like to commend you for that you actually have Schutzdienst at the Sieger show. Yeah,
and at the end of this year, we will start Schutzdienst for breed survey as well. Without that, it's going to be no Schutzdienst with AUS. This is what we're going to start doing. So we have to work on that. We are working on that, and I wish other countries will follow in Asia. because that's what we need to get done. And I hope it's followed with enough zeal to make people do it.
I mean, when the dogs are there, when the exposure is there, and when the will of the people is there to learn, then I think anything is possible. But it's just when we make the initial step too hard to take, or the initial ladder rung is too high to reach, and then it seems impossible to do. Because
There are
the
some,
people there are not born in the culture of, getting up every morning to go tracking, for example.
some of the things, they do cause disturbance. When we introduced hip X-ray into Pakistan before the elbow, just the hip, in the first 40% of the population got wiped out.
Wow.
And you can imagine the depression there was in people's heads and faces after that.
Sure. I mean, it's very defeating.
There was resistance. It came back for the year and a half resistance. Today, we have almost a 90% clearance of hips and elbows.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's very encouraging.
It's been, they've bred it out, they've bred sensibly, the breeding with dogs with normal and good hips, etc. And yeah, I think it's really been successful. I'm really happy about that. Really happy. I just hope it grows and keeps on growing, and IGP does does come in whatever format. I mean, I don't even mind calling it PKT, for example. If you follow, no, seriously, if we follow, we'll get German judges to look at it. If we follow B and if we follow C to perfection, on A, as I said, I am not going to bang my head against a wall, because track laying is not going to happen in this country.
Right.
It will not happen. And
no, I think scent work is a much better idea.
If we have to relic, some kind of other work, scent work, this nose work for drugs. I have the wherewithal in the country. I have the resource in the country to train people to do it. There's no point bringing somebody in for a weekend to lay the track and then go away and then again bring him in later. It costs a lot of money now, Abhai.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a joke.
And nobody is going to come here. In the old days, you could tell someone, come on, come over for a weekend and a meal, etc. Let me pay your ticket and hotel and just do it for me. It's not happening, not even for me.
No.
I had enough people wanting to come and do it. It's now going to happen for money. So you have to pay out for money to bring them in here as well. 3 days of lost work for them. You have to compensate.
Absolutely. I mean, life is getting more and more expensive around the world.
Yeah. So you have to compensate it. So this is something that can be done, will be done. And I would like to move for it. And I'd like to be able to perfect it this year and then bring out a German judge and ask him to do PKT or whatever, or IGP, or able to amend it to get it done. And if other countries like Australia, etc., are ready to suggest something for C, because they in one province can't do bite work. All the others they can. They're very successful. The Working German Shepherd Dog Club of Australia is doing a great job. They've trained a lot of dogs. They've had their Sieger shows, etc. Their Meisterschaft, etc. there, and they've had good dogs doing it. They've had dogs entering in the World Union, where USV shows. So if certain parts of Australia don't want to do it, then let them come with an alternative. Sure. Let the dog do something else in C, but it should do it.
Absolutely.
Before the grading, then it should do it within some period of time.
Or they cannot be a part of the system, essentially.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Absolutely. Then they should be graded as normal gradings as permitted under the harmonization program.
Austria just dodged a bullet. They almost had to abolish.
If that happens in Europe,
that's the first domino to fall.
Lots of things that can happen in Europe with the dogs with the noses and whatnot, and long nose French bulldogs and pugs they want you to produce and stuff like that,
Right.
which will probably look ridiculous, but I don't know if they can breathe easier or not. Yeah, if that happens, if Schutzdienst goes in Germany and that law has to be amended, then the alternative that they follow, we'll all follow or should follow.
Right.
Look, the WUSV without the SV is nothing.
Right. Oh, absolutely. There's
Yes,
no
the SV
there's no meat.
the SV leads it through the direction, etc.
SV is the lifeblood of the breed.
Absolutely, without any question at all. And we need to follow that system. We need to engage with them. They need to be a little bit more open in terms of their discussions with people directly. And there's that factor is missing. I think somehow or the other that has to change, and that engagement has to be of a homogeneous kind rather than a proclamation. And if it's a joint proclamation, life will change. I think it can become certainly much better as to how we go forward.
So going to lighter topics, could you please share with me some memorable moments from your showing days that stick out to you still?
You know, the memorable moments are the big ones. It's
You've had many.
I've been fortunate as a 12-year-old to have to be able to see a dog going Seeger, as I did my father's dog, and watching it, and I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking of it. When
Could you describe the atmosphere?
It was just unbelievable. Dr. Funk was a very tough man, very tough. He was from the original German race, so to speak. And the year before, in 1961, I was at the show again. Mutz was leading the class, and everybody thought he'd be Seeger. And 3 times he told Eric Franke, who handled the dog, he said, give him a loose line. And Franke had trained the dog on a 3/4 line. And he would give him the loose line and then pull back. Loose line, give him back. So he said to him, I've told you 4 times loose line. You haven't listened, change positions. So he put him second behind Foyer Starenberg. And, you know, there was mega disappointment, but that was it. In the next year, in 1962, in Dusseldorf, he had Mutz leading from the start. He had my father's other dog, Zebu, in the 4th place. Mutz led. Just before he closed the ring, he moved Zebu to 3. So it was 1 and 3. My hair is standing on end now when I think about it. I mean, it was just incredible. And picking up the cup as a 12-year-old, it was almost as big as me. It was just, it was a fabulous feeling. Fabulous feeling.
That's amazing.
Really fabulous feeling. And then Swashbuckler winning Best in Show at Crufts. So I was like 21 at that time. Coming of age, that was a coming of age prize as such. I'd just become 21. February 4th.
What year was that?
1971.
Wow.
4th February is my birthday. This happened in the first week of March. So
belated birthday.
At that, oh, thank you. So that was a huge, huge show win. But winning Best in Show myself when I was 10, beating my uncle, beating the Maharaja of Baria, beating Peter Prince in the ring in Bombay, within myself, I just wanted to... I'd beaten the best players in the game and won Best in Show. And they couldn't believe it under an English judge, where they thought, how could a German Shepherd, Alsatian it was called at that time.
That's right. That's right.
How can an Alsatian win Best in Show and handled by a kid? So, I mean, I love that. That's one of the bigger moments in life. Then, of
Incidentally,
course,
one of my first Best in Show as a 10-year-old was under Maharaja of Baria with my Dachshund female.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Then, of course, Pella winning Best in Show. That was another 11 years later. I was 32 at that time, was phenomenal. And then I think the crowning glory was Ober. It was just absolutely fabulous. The story is a wonderful story. Peter Rika asked me whether he could breed that litter from Ica because she
Peter
was a
Rika is
Kevin.
Mr. Hans Peter Rika, who was the breeder of Kennel Bad Ball, for
Yeah,
the audience context.
very dear friend. 30 years we worked together. So Hans Peter asked me if he could have Ica in breeding term for breeding because she was a Kevin Murtal daughter. Kevin Murtal was
Yes,
his, and Rico was Kevin's father. So that was
yes.
so I said, yeah, sure you can. But I said I picked the male. So he said, okay. So I picked Giovanni, and because I saw Giovanni at the Seeger show in the junior class, he was SG5 in Karlsruhe in 2004 when Ica became VA. So we mated him to Giovanni, came, and the litter was born in Konrad Sigmund's house, Giggelsfelsen, where
Yes.
Ica was.
Mhm.
And so when the puppies were born, there were three of them. There was one dog and these two, one long coat and these two dogs. So I told at about 10, 12 weeks, once they'd been done or tattooed, I told Peter to pick up his pup. And I said, you take the first pick up your pup, and that's it. Okay. So he sent a friend, Hans Häusler. He picked up this pup, who was a stronger, bigger pup, and he took it away, and that was it. And so about 3 months later, I visited Conrad, and there was this puppy there, which was Ober. So I said, I'm going to take him home. So I'd taken a box with me from Frankfurt, went to Heidelberg, up in the mountain to Odenwald, picked up the pup.
Odenwald, it's like a postcard. That place is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's fabulously beautiful. Fabulously beautiful. The lakes and Heidelberg and the river. So I picked up the pup, and I was driving to Munich to take the flight. And I called Hans Peter and said, I'll drive by because it's on the highway. So I said, drive by for coffee and then I'll go to the airport. So he said, yeah, fine, I'm there. So I stopped by at his house for coffee at about 12 o'clock or something in the afternoon. We had coffee, we had a chat. So I came out to leave, and he said, what's that in the car? I said, this is that other pup, the one you took. So he said, yeah, what are you doing with it? I said, I'm taking it home. So he said, okay. So he said, let me look at it. So he opened the box. He looked at the pup running for about a minute. He said, okay, I'm just coming. Picked up the pup, walked into his house, and came back 3 minutes later empty-handed. I said, where's the pup? He said, you're not taking him. He's staying here. I said, what do you mean he's staying here? He's my pup. I said, you already have yours. So he said, no. That you make with Häusler, this you make with me. So I said, what do you mean I make with you? So I lost Ober at that point.
I love it. I love it.
That's the dog Ober Bad Boy, one of the moments of my life. So it was just unbelievable. And when he became Seeger, it was, let's say that from all practical purposes, he was a Seeger bred in the house, so to speak. So
doesn't carry the Futzenperle name.
That's what he was. That's why he was different to all other dogs. Absolutely.
Oh, that's
different.
Wonderful.
So
I want to talk about like Ober. Ober was a dog, when you looked at him, was a very normal dog, and I mean normal as the highest compliment. He was walking on all four legs. He didn't look like any anomaly that a lot of other dogs look like in high places. When he was standing, his back was completely normal. He had a normal looking head, very expressive masculine head, but a normal looking dog. Very beautiful, glamorous color, but not overdone. We talk about the croup. Okay, yeah, croup could be slightly longer, whatever. But in my estimation, I've had dogs for about almost 30 years now that I've been raising German Shepherds, and I've been working them myself for the longest time. we talk, a lot of judges make such a fuss about, the underline, the underline must be better and the underline must be longer. The croup could be longer, the croup could be this. The dogs that have the actual really long croups and those really long loins to make those long underlines are the ones that cannot jump properly, are the same dogs that cannot turn on a dime, that are the same dogs that hurt their Achilles tendons and they hurt their cruciate ligaments and so on and so forth. So, I mean, what are we looking for really when we've lost sight of the breed standard and we just keep playing into exaggerations?
Yeah, I think anything that's exaggerated is detrimental. Whether it is this
It's like,
huge,
how long does a croup need to be a long croup or to not be a functional croup anymore?
I judge a croup when the dog is moving.
Right.
Okay? That's when you see it best.
Yes.
If he's doing this behind, then he's restricting his movement, even if it's powerfully.
Mhm.
When he's doing this, it's a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
This entire joint is moving. It's
Correct.
like a machine. It's like a piston engine then,
G.
and that's what you're looking at. And if a
G.
dog can move like this, and he has a decent reach, to me
Right.
the croup is not a negating factor.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more.
Let me say that I don't like a short croup.
Right. I mean, but
I don't like a deeply inclined croup.
sure.
And I don't like a flat croup.
Right.
I'm in the business of reading that the croup should be functional. It should
Absolutely.
perform what is required to perform. And I believe that it's required to perform the leverage that gives the dog drive behind,
Yes.
enough to propel him forward, to reach forward.
Yes.
That's the way it is. I'm not talking about this. This is not movement for me.
No.
At all. This with short stepping front and moving like this is not
Elevated head and just paddling in the front.
The Germans use this word. The original Korung had this in it, which you underlined, where it said flach über den Boden gehende Gänge.
Flat over the ground movement.
Flach
Yep.
über den Boden gehen, which is flat, okay? I don't say flat. Maybe the wither should be the highest point. You see this video of Dingo from House Gero moving.
Yes.
That is how the dog should be moving. He's moving in that without support from the line. He's moving it on his own. He was a dog, again, who had a shorter croup than Ober did, but used it very well.
Very effectively.
Very effectively in his movement, and he maintained his line across the board. To me, that's the idea of a dog moving. And he moved extremely well. People said Gundo, that Dingo was a runner and that running started with Dingo. No, he was a positive mover, but he was not a runner. It wasn't like we lost control of dogs now over the years with running with speed. And if you take those videos and look at the dogs running with speed, they're falling down, they're going all over the place. It's just speed and running. But that's not the idea.
Right.
The dog must move. It's to see the dog going into a light trot and moving across
all
the
speeds,
looking nice in all speeds is a different ball game altogether. I mean, that's
100%.
That's a beautiful picture you're looking at.
Yeah, that only comes from harmony in build. And it could be the upper arm could be longer or better angled, or the croup could be longer and better angled, but that does not dictate the harmony of the overall dog.
It all comes in together. It all comes in together. When you talk of reach could be more, you're talking about marginal. You're talking about
Absolutely.
margins. Small,
Absolutely.
minuscule margins. You don't need to take a compass to measure what they're doing.
Right.
It's just little margins you're talking
that's really goofy to me, those angles and all that stuff. Because I'm not sure if anybody actually measured real dogs.
How can you measure them?
It's goofiness. It's goofiness.
It's a theoretical measurement of what a dog is.
Yes.
I mean, You don't have equipment that size to start putting onto a dog and measuring. You'd spend all day judging a dog if you did that.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It's better said in books, not in
Theoret-
real life.
Theoretically, it's fabulous. It sounds great. It looks great.
Yeah,
On paper, it looks excellent, no question about it. But when you're applying it in practical terms, it's what this sees and how it registers and
absolutely,
the standard that's imprinted in here. That's what you see.
100%. And that
That's
comes
what
from real world experience.
one tries. When one learns all the time. You learn new things as you go along all the time.
A lot of times it's also what not to do, but that's also a great learning experience to have.
Yeah, it takes it. It's not easy. It's not easy.
No, no,
Easy.
no. It's
One can get easily led astray in a certain direction, etc. But also, it's not difficult, Abhay. If you want to really be honest with yourself, it's not difficult. It's just
I think
interpreting what you
personally
see.
I
And
feel
if you
Mhm.
don't see it, ask.
Yes, that's what I wanted to mention. Is I feel that we are really struggling as a community to find real mentors that actually know what they're talking about and that are willing to teach the next generation. Like you've always been so forthcoming with everything and always accepting and inviting, but there's not a lot of you out there, unfortunately, that accept new people into the fold and they want to bring more people in and they don't want to, be the gatekeepers of information into the community, so to speak.
I
And that
think
I think is a real problem. I've faced that all my life growing up, just these gatekeepers.
let me ask you about the gatekeepers. Let me ask, that's an interesting word you use. Let me
Yes.
ask you, have you felt restricted in asking them, or have you asked a question and not got an answer?
Oh, it's always the I was too stupid or too young to realize at the time. It was always agenda driven.
A lot of people are not forthcoming, or possibly a little shy in being able to tell you what it is or how it is. But I think if you ask a question, you can get an answer. At least I did get an answer. I tried and I learned and I did get an answer. And I was also embarrassed at times because
Sure.
I thought I knew
No,
everything.
I'm always happy to make a fool out of myself to learn something.
No, I thought I knew everything about dogs' pedigrees. And Dr. Funk he asked me who the mother of Zebu house shooting was, and I was stranded. I
Right.
couldn't I couldn't answer, and I was really embarrassed till he
Right.
told me who it was, and he said, "You don't even know your own father's dog's breeding." So you learn. I
Right.
was 13 or 14, 15 years old at the time.
Hmm.
So you learn to see things. I learned. I had the pleasure of meeting Walter Martin when I was 10. My father
Yes.
bought the first dog that Walter ever bred. It was a dog
Wow.
called Asso for Davina Au with the A letter. My father bought him. He was SG4 at the Seeger show in 1960. And he bought the dog, and I knew Walter since from that time onwards, one knew Walter as part of the family. Herman was a great mentor, again, totally part of the family, totally the man responsible for sending me to Wilsteig to buy Pella when she was 11 months old. He said, I saw a beautiful bitch at this man's house. She was 11,
Martin Goebel.
at Martin Goebel's house. So he said, it's far away in some little corner in Bavaria near the Austrian border. Will you go there? I said, yeah, I will. And I did. Went there first thing in the morning, and sure enough, saw her, convinced Martin to sell her. He bought her, and then took her to the show, and yeah, it was fantastic. So he really guided me big time on what he saw, how he saw it. The same with Gundo. Gundo was SG 96 in the youth class at the Seeger show the year before, and he went from there to VA5 in 1 year. The dog had developed so beautifully, and so yeah, mentors were few. So I learned. I was lucky. I was taught. They were happy to answer my questions. And that's how I learned. So I
I think a
hope
lot of
others,
those
I
charismatic
hope
figures are
others,
missing today.
I hope others teach. Yeah, Herman was a man who encouraged in totality younger, newer breeders. People like Hofbauer, Kellerer, Goebel, Bucher. These were not the traditional big boys of dogdom.
Sure.
They were big breeders, they were good breeders in their own right, but they were out in the fields, and those are the people that Herman brought to the fore.
The real dogmen.
Helped them, and they are the ones where it all came from. And it was wonderful to see those people. And I still look for the younger people to see, some young man who's got a dog, who's working his ass off, who's crying at the end of tears because the first 8 dogs are owned by known people and he's ninth. And my advice to him is, you're first because you're ninth in front of people, ninth in front of people who have a bigger say than you. But keep your dog going, it'll come. And it's a shame that when you see 2 weeks later, that dog is sold to somebody else,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's coming second and third and first.
Happens too often.
Yeah, and that needs to change. That needs to change now. And the youth
Mr.
today
Martin,
sorry.
I said Mr. Martin was such a big influence. I was speaking to Mr. Christian Lang, who was incidentally judging the working females this coming year.
Yes.
And he mentioned Mr. Martin's judging style, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Martin used to do that at that time, and he wants to implement something similar for his judging style." So it's like so many decades later, it's like as a little boy, it made such an impression on Christian that he's wanting to carry that tradition on. So that was very heartwarming and encouraging to hear for me.
There was a huge system which he operated. He did, and Dr. Beck did. Dr. Beck probably had a little bit more flair, but Herman was so astute and so concentrated. It was unbelievable. And
Could you
I
please
was
talk
lucky.
about a little bit?
Yeah, he was open. It was a question of he knew exactly what he was looking at. And beyond that, he knew what he was breeding from that particular female. I think that was the most important part. He could visualize and see what was going to come from there. And it did. It eventually materialized the way he saw it. All the bitches of that time, while he was Verein Zuchtwart, produced extremely well. His judgment was strong. He had the dogs in walk. There was no running. There was no racing. There's walking. Beck was even more walking. Just one quick round or two to see what the difference was. And yeah, it was an object lesson in systematically judging animals. He would look at the ring start looking at the ring from behind, start clearing the behind, the back totally, then come to the front. And what he placed in front, he would go with it and keep it going and see how well it went. And he was very smart. If he wanted a dog to be up front and the second dog was pushing it, he would change the third to the second, so the second dog got stuck behind the third. And that was it. That was the pushing stop. So, he had decided what it was. So the handler who went from second to third got stuck behind the second, and then he was trying to push the second. So the second stopped pushing the first. So you had harmony in the ring. It was, yeah, he was very good. Even again with male. Yeah,
could you highlight the importance of the walking as opposed to the fast lap?
Look, the walking is the structure of the dog. It's basically a herding dog and it walks. Even with the sheep, it walks, trots a little bit, but mainly it's guarding the sheep and it's walking. And
the living fence.
Yeah, in the walking, you see the stamina of the dog. You actually see the reach and how the hindquarters are moving. You see it happening. If the dog goes into a light trot, you see that happening again. And it does. From walk, a dog, which is a trotter, will go into a light trot and then come back to a walk, light trot and come back to a walk. And when a dog is walking, it's not pacing. You might see Pacing is when a dog is moving faster with both legs moving in the same direction.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. You
Yep.
can, if you're not a careful handler, you can up the pace in the slow walk and make the dog pace. You've
True.
got to bring the dog to you and then go when you're trotting.
Yes.
You have to pick the dog and make him trot. There are natural trotters and they go into a natural trot, but it's with the hand that the dog takes off. And so the walking you can do for a long time. You see the stamina of the dog. You see whether the dog is going to start falling, getting tired and falling, just walking. Walking is more tiring than one fast round. One fast
True.
round is stamina.
Right.
Just to see how, I would say, to see how well the dog's lungs are, how it could breathe. But this walking, this is tiring. Yourself, if you walk 20 rounds or run one, there's a difference.
Absolutely. Yes.
Different
I know which one
muscles.
I would prefer.
Yeah, in this fast round, yes, you see whether the back is holding on or not, but you will see the muscles and the form and the entire form of the dog when it's walking.
It's also a lot harder to hide faults when the dog is walking. The speed can
Yeah.
cover a lot of problems.
You can see where the shoulder is moving. You
Yeah.
see what the croup is doing. You can look at the hindquarters. You can see if the hocks are beginning to give after a little bit of walk. In a fast round, the dog is going, move. You hardly see it. I mean, you're not behind the dog in any case. You can
Right.
see if the hock is twisting, but otherwise, you hardly see it. It's gone in a flash. But when it's walking in front of you, you're watching it. And it's being put under pressure from the dogs behind. You're seeing how its balance is, how its whole equilibrium in the ring is. Everything comes to light.
And could you please highlight some mentoring highlights of your career where you've gotten to mentor people and they have done exceedingly well?
Look, I've tried to help people. Sorry?
As a passing the baton, so to speak.
Baton, I hope to pass. I hope it passes sooner than it has passed. I would love to have been out of dogs by now. I'd love to have, folded my shirts and jeans and put them away. Sort of spent the weekend wearing glossy shoes and nice shirts and nice trousers, but that hasn't happened yet. Yeah, I've tried to help. I always try to tell somebody in the sense that if somebody is trying to breed themselves, if they're buying a dog, I always tell them, only buy a dog if you can afford to buy a dog. Don't import a dog for the sake of saying I have an imported dog. Don't go and buy a dog which is 3,500 euros and rubbish, because it's 3,500 euros badly spent. I would say try and get a good middle V dog or middle SG dog, well bred, the good father line, good mother line, a good dog. Need not come first at every show that you enter him at, so long as he gets the highest grading in the class. Work towards that. But if you want to breed, I've always said, try and bring a bitch. People come to me and say, I'm getting first pick from this litter. And I know nobody gets first pick.
Right. Yes. Don't be silly.
I, as a breeder, am not giving first pick to anyone.
Right, exactly.
Why should any breeder do it? Okay?
No, I agree.
Then you have first pick. Any clever breeder who knows somebody sitting abroad and asking for first pick, make sure that that guy gets the puppy that he sees in his kennel will not be bought by anybody who comes to see it. So it's not the first pick, is the last pick, because he needs that one out,
Gone
before
first.
he
That's
needs
right.
that one out before anybody else comes in to see it. Okay. So that little glossy, fluffy puppy looking much better than what we have in our country, with big bones and big hair, etc., comes in.
You're bursting a lot of bubbles right now.
No, it's the truth.
Yes.
So I hope it doesn't, but so I always say, if that's what you want, give yourself a chance. Bring in a bitch, in well-bred bitch, in whelp to a top dog, and then you pick your own pup to sell the rest, so you recover your money, and you're well in your way to trying your real luck, because you have whatever you think is the first pick. Your choice is what you have. Okay? That's my way of doing it, if I was going to start on somewhere. Plus, it gives you a female, a bitch. You can breed to some other good dog in the country, breed another litter, and if she's producing well, another litter. So you have a stock, a brood mare at home, a brood bitch at home, which is going to produce for you. So that's important. If somebody is already with, wanting to spend more money and get a dog, then you point him in the right direction to getting a good bitch of high quality with the right bloodlines, where you know that there's production, where there can be production. But cutting corners, buying bitches or puppies or dogs from random breeding, etc., where there have been a lot of one-offs, that's dicey. A one-off can come anytime, anywhere. What it brings in future, or where it brings in future is damn difficult to see. And you're seeing that a lot at this point in time. You're getting a lot of one-offs and nothing happening after that. There was a time, if you remember, and one still hopes, that there were 3 and 4 dogs from a litter that were going to shows and doing well, which was unheard of previously. And then it came. And that's what I say is this Martin Beck era that produced those dogs. The 3, 4 dogs from a litter were known, were producing, were being bred, and moving forward.
The 2 first VA females, Vendrina and Waldrona Kalahide.
Yeah. So
went on to produce Gandhi.
Yeah. So this is where it happens. That's where it starts working. So you have to come back to that aspect of it. Having suddenly out of the blue 19 VA bitches, which is what I call buffet breeding, means neither here nor there. There's a buffet. What do you want to eat? You want to eat Pakistani? Do you want to eat Burmese? You want to eat Thai? You want
Chinese?
To eat Indian? I mean, buffet breeding is buffet breeding. I mean, I can only, I can't go into the brain of anybody who does that and say, what's happening. But
I feel it's just economically motivated.
That I would not comment on. Whether
completely understandable.
It is or it isn't.
It's just my opinion.
Yeah, I won't comment on that. But the fact is, it belies logic.
Yes.
And objectively, you have to, in your judgment, you have to give your mind. You have to give your mind to those who are going to breed, those who are watching. Because let's assume everybody who's watching is a breeder. Everybody who's watching wants to have a dog. The others who are watching are irrelevant. Spectators are not relevant. They're just Zuschauers or bystanders, just watching what it is. What we are talking about is, what is this going to portray towards the serious breeder in front, the serious dog fancier in front, internationally, all over the world. This is what you're presenting to them. And what you're presenting to them is what you expect or think or visualize can happen if I was to follow the same bloodline. If I was to look at female X and look at her bloodlines and then say, well, look, I have a dog similar to this bloodline. How would it work? I'm putting it together. So I'm building hope myself. I don't have a VA. I would like to have one which is as high quality dog. Forget VA for the time being. And how do I get there? So that's a very important factor. When you're mentoring someone, you've got to allow them to see what you know, what you see, so that they can see and try to achieve the same. And I find that very important. When I tell somebody breed like this along these lines, is because I'm seeing a vision within my mind as to what it can be. And you know how it works that way.
No, I appreciate the insight. That's absolutely astute advice. Finally, reflecting on your lifelong journey with German Shepherds and the establishment of the club, basically, from the scaffolding all the way to where it is now in the 21st century, in Pakistan, being a member of the WSV and being on the board of the WSV as a leader, a worldwide leader in the German Shepherd breed. What legacy do you hope to leave behind for the future generations of breed enthusiasts?
I don't know, Abhai, you can possibly better define what my legacy would be. Considering that the dog world, or the German Shepherd dog, has led me to achieve every possible aspect of it. I've achieved the breeding part, I've achieved the ownership, I've been fortunate to have 4 World Seegers, having been there, witnessed it, seen it, lived with it, bred from them, having bred in England through Swashbuckler, and a Mutt's granddaughter, Flicka, the dog that won all the biggest, best in shows, called Champion Spartacist in England, and having, looked at whatever there is. I really don't know. What I would like to be remembered as, my legacy to be that I was fair, I was just, and a complete lover and the best friend of the German Shepherd dog. That if somebody remembers me as that, I would really be a very happy man.
I've personally known you to be always very welcoming and forthcoming with your knowledge and very kind to anybody and everybody that is, looked up to you or approached you. With your time, with your effort, you're always very forthcoming. And I'm sincerely grateful to you for that on behalf of the entire community, whoever whose life you might have touched.
I'm grateful to you. Thank you so much for being so kind, for all your kind
Thank,
words. Thank you so much.
so thank you for sharing your time. I hope we can do this again sometime in the future.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much. Very timely,
Well,
and I wish you much success. I wish the World Union much success. Having worked there for 12 years, I would, hope that they can put the whole thing together, that they can look at the community as a whole and not look inwardly at all at what they or others can benefit, but specifically give to the German Shepherd dog whatever we can. I think it deserves it. It's a wonderful friend, and it's something that I am so fortunate in my life to have been touched by this dog, because it's the greatest dog in the world. Thank you.
thank you so much, Uncle. I hope you have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much. God bless. You take care. Have a great
Take
day.
care. Thank you. You too.
Bye.